All right, hello, this is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been coming to you with a series of video presentations for the Rankin Technical College Application and Web Development, or AWD1111 .NET Framework with Web Databases class. This is the fourth presentation, and in here I'm going over the PowerPoints for Chapter 25 out of the Muroc text, Muroc's ASP.NET 4.6 with C# 2015. When I taught this class last, which was the fall of 2017, the Muroc's ASP.NET 4.6 with C# 2015 was the textbook that we used. Now, it's a good book. However, the first 24 out of 25 chapters talk about ASP.NET web forms. The crux of this class has been changed, so it is an ASP.NET MVC class. That's why I decided to just go over this one chapter. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So they want to describe the model, view, and controller of the MVC design pattern, which you've heard quite a bit. Explain how using the MVC design pattern can improve application development. Describe the view model of an ASP.NET MVC app. Describe the sequence in which models, views, and controllers are developed. Describe the use of the Razor View Engine and routing in an ASP.NET MVC app. Describe the use of HTML controls, HTML helpers, and layout views within an ASP.NET MVC app. Describe the use of redirection and the PRG pattern in a controller of an ASP.NET MVC app. And finally, describe the use of strongly typed views and model binding in an ASP.NET MVC app. The big thing to remember, we've talked about this again and again and again. All right? You are getting a lot of high-level stuff right now. Are you expected to remember it? Ideally, you'll remember as much as you possibly can. But again, the big idea behind this is you can always go back. So you're at your browser. You type in, let's say you want some information. You're going to go out to Amazon and buy something. So you type in Amazon.com. An HTTP or Hypertext Transfer Protocol request is then sent. It is received eventually by a controller, all right, that is meant to handle these requests. That controller will go through and look and say, well, what kind of a request is this? For instance, if it's for a textbook, there might be a model for a book. If it's a video, there'd be a model for a video, that kind of an idea. But notice how this is flowing from the browser to the controller, from the controller to the model. Then the model calls the associated data store, which is normally a database, gets that information which is sent back to the model, which is sent back to the controller. All right, the controller then basically calls the correct view, which is going to send back the original HTTP request as an HTTP response and sends that HTML back to the user. Now, does that totally make sense? I don't know. It does to me. All right? I'm hoping that it does to you as well. So as it says, the MVC design pattern breaks web apps into their component parts so they're easier to code, test, and maintain. We've talked about this before. The model consists of the files that contain data access code. They are the classes that basically coordinate with whatever the data store is, typically a database. The model always also holds the business logic and any associated data validation. That's the model of MVC. The view is what gets returned to the user. So they're the files that create the HTML for the user interface. They return the response to the user. The controller is the middle person. The controller receives the request from the user, it gets the appropriate data from the model, and it provides that data to the view. Technically, as it says there, the view model, which they show right there, isn't part of the MVC pattern, but view models are often used with ASP.NET MVC. We've mentioned this before as far as why you would use Model View Controller. The main reason, as mentioned right there, is a better separation of concerns. It makes it easier to make changes. The HTML is more concise. MVC works with the stateless nature of the web, which can improve performance. After a while, I hope, that what you get out of this class is after a while, it's like, oh, that's why we're doing this. That makes sense. And the light bulb will start to come on. Now, in this book, in the Muroc book, throughout the book, they work on a shopping cart app for a thing that they call the Halloween Superstore. All right? And what you see up here, there's a menu. So that's the name of the app. If you click here, you get to the home page. You click here, you get to the order page. You click here, you get to the cart page. You click here, you get to a contact form page. That should all make sense. This is the logo, which would be in your header area. This is your footer. All right? And then what do we have here? Well, if you notice, we've got right here, this is a label that says, please select a product. And we can select them based off of this drop-down list. This drop-down list right here is linked to a database. So if we choose Deranged Cat, it'll give us the title, a short description, a long description, and the price. So it'll give us this information here plus an image. Then we also, in addition to adding a label for please select a product, we add a label for quantity, and we allow the user to buy one or more of these Deranged Cats and add them to their cart. So the home page has got a simple controller and a simple view. The Contact Us page, excuse me. The Contact Us page will have a controller, as it says, that uses a view model and a strongly typed view. The order page controls in a view, controllers that handle both get and post requests, and the cart has models and view models. Again, I'm not pie in the sky enough to think we're going to go over this and wow, it's going to totally make sense. Boom, everything's going to be good. Again, at the end of this particular video, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, as mentioned previously, I'm going to go out to this ASP.NET Getting Started page, and I'm going to go over the Getting Started with ASP.NET MVC5, the Getting Started with EF6 using MVC5, and the EF database first. That's my plan. This is all a prelude to that. So I'm hoping that going over this stuff and hitting you over the head with it, for lack of better words, again and again and again, is making it easier for you to comprehend. They give here a 4-step procedure for creating an MVC application. You create the app, you create a model, you create a controller, you create a view. Does it always go like this? No. Is this all? Typically, no. You'll typically have several models, several controllers, and conceivably several views. Now, you've seen this already, that when you start a new project, we're going to be choosing MVC here, and that'll automatically choose it here too. If we do check here, then it'll also create a unit test folder for us. All right, we'll talk about authentication as we get into the process. Now, if we do this and we create not an empty project, but an MVC project, notice what we get that's created for us. In particular, notice what were the 3 red ellipses or LIPSI, I don't know how you say that, on the slide here. You get a controllers folder, which by default will hold a home controller, an account controller, and a manage controller. The one we care about for now is the home controller. All right. We get a model folder. Notice if there's an account controller, there's an account view model. If there's a home controller, well, there typically are going to be models for each of the controllers, okay? And the views, all right, so we've got a home, and you'll notice there's an about, a contact, and an index. And I don't know if I guess they aren't going to show the way that the app would look, but that stuff pretty much does coordinate with visually what you see in the app. So here are some of the folders and files that are created by default. Which ones do we care about? Well, I'm not, without trying to sound too smart alecky, all of them. The app data folder is where we hold our database or databases. The app start folder is, as it says, it's the code that's called on application startup. We may have to go in there and tell the system when it starts if we want to change and make sure that what is called is what we want to have called, then we might have to go in there and make changes to that file. The content folder holds our CSS files and our images. The controllers folder holds all of our controllers. The models folder holds all of our models. The views folder holds all of our views. That should make sense. The scripts folder holds all of our JavaScript and jQuery files. The global.asax file works with event handlers. The startup.css file, as it says, it calls configuration code for the authentication of the system when you start. And the config files are used for NuGet packages and other things in the application. Again, as we go in here, notice MVC view engines. It says view engines are modules that take the data sent by the controller, combine it with the HTML in the view, and render it to the browser. This stuff, even though it's all separated, all works together. That's a key thing to realize. What you can also use in here now, so well, it's really for the last 8 years, is what's called Razor. What you will see as we get into this class is when you in the past, this almost sounds contradictory to some of the stuff we talked about before between the separation with model, view, and controller. Because what the View Razor engine does is it allows you to put C# code right in your HTML files. All right? When you do that, you get a brand new extension for the file .cshtml. CS for C#, HTML for hypertext markup language. Whenever you want to put in Razor code, you'll be doing stuff like this. Right there and right there. Again, you will see this as we go on. We're going to talk about the route config. This says that by default, when you start up the program, run the index method of the home controller. If we want to come in and add additional models, we right-click on the models folder and choose Add Class. We can add and put whatever we need to put in here. Now again, some of this stuff is a bit dated, but we're going to look at coming in here and choosing, for example, at least some of these, the MVC5 controller empty. What you get by choosing the empty controller like that is a very stripped down project where you can go in and manually add things yourself. What's the advantage of doing that? Well, the advantage of doing that is by you adding the stuff yourself, you have as much control as possible over the system. When you want to add a controller, it's much the same way. You right mouse click on the controllers folder, you choose Add Controller. All right. Again, this is all code in here that we're going to be going over. This may look a little confusing, and you'll notice that in brackets right here, you have HTTP GET. And over here, you've got in brackets HTTP GET. All right. Occasionally, you will have both an HTTP GET and an HTTP POST. All right. Look at it this way. If you're not changing anything, you're going to be using a GET. So if you're basically just showing information, you're not doing an insert, you're not doing an update, you're not doing a delete, it'll be an HTTP GET. If you are doing an update, or you are doing a delete, or you are doing an insert, instead of that being HTTP GET, it'll be an HTTP POST. You're going to learn how to add these views. The syntax of this has changed a little bit. That's why I don't want to go over the example that's here. The layout underscore CS HTML, for lack of better words, that's the kind of stuff that you want to appear on each page. So in other words, whether I'm on the home page, or I click an about page, or I click a contact page, I want the same header information on top, the same footer information on the bottom. So what's going to change between those is the stuff that's in the middle. So this would be our header information, and this would probably end up being, at least some of it, would be our footer information. All right, we're going to talk about scripts.render. We're going to talk about bundles, because that can be a little bit confusing. So here's the home page. And what you notice if you take a look at this is it's basically, there's a heading and there's a bunch of text. Now, there is a little bit of calculation in there. It says, thank you for visiting us this beautiful Monday. Well, you've got to be able to figure out the day of the week. All right? Welcome to this, where every day is Halloween. That's here. And again, this comes in and gets the day of the week. So if it's today, for example, where I am, today is Friday. Yeah. So it would say, welcome, thank you for visiting us this beautiful Friday. All right. Here's a contact page. Now, what you'll notice if you look at this, this isn't the typical kind of contact page that we usually have. What I mean by that is, this just shows the email address of the Halloween Superstore, the phone number of the Halloween Superstore, the address of the Halloween Superstore, and links to the Halloween Superstore's Facebook and Twitter pages. What we normally see on a contact page are a bunch of labels, text boxes, maybe drop-down lists, etc., where we can fill in information. Not set up like that on here. You'll notice this for each statement. All right, and if you notice, anytime you start something with an @ sign, all right, anytime you come in here and you start something with an @ sign, it's saying this is C# code. Oh, you're done because this is HTML code. Oh, there's some more C# code. You're back into HTML. Oh, there's some more C# code, etc. What we will end up doing as we go on is we'll use what are referred to as HTML helpers. All right, and these helpers will write some of the code for us. Always nice. So here it is, and here is the same code being written with the helpers. And as you notice, less code is written. More stuff is done for you. Same kind of thing here. All right. And they've got some redirection. I don't want to get into that stuff yet. It's a little bit complex. All right. Now, what I do want to mention, because I'm done with this, I gave pretty much this same lecture before. And when I did that, let me see if I can find it. When I did that, I did it as right here. All right. So there it was.
Those things, and Evan's going to do the other thing. All right. Well, what is out there?
It was a 45-minute presentation as opposed to this one, which is only 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one out there, and I'm going to put the new one that I'm working on out there. All right? So what I have done thus far, okay, what I have done thus far, I just want you to see this, is in the first presentation, I came out and did this MVC for noobs. In the second presentation, I did this ASP.NET MVC overview from Microsoft. In the third presentation, I did an absolute beginner's tutorial. Well, I'm up to the fourth one now. And that was these PowerPoint slides. All right? The next thing that I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to go through, and as mentioned, as promised, I'm going to do 3 more presentations. The next one will be getting started with ASP.NET MVC, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11-part series. Then we'll do the getting started with Entity Framework, which is EF6, using this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we will go through EF Database first with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the game plan. Once we've done all that, then we'll get started into the book. All right? So you can go and you can look for this 4th presentation to be out there along with this one right here. All right? And I'll be back to continue on in just a few minutes.